Alright guys, welcome back to another video. Now, in this video, it may seem like I've put a clickbait title, but I can assure you the exercise that you do today will definitely get rid of at least about 90–95% of issues that you have in your wrist, fingers, or anywhere in the lower part of your arm. Now, even if you think you don't have any issues in the wrist, you can test out the flexibility of your wrist to see how far it goes back. Ideally, we want a 90-degree angle in the extension point. Obviously, mine is not at 90 degrees, but it should be there when you pull the wrist back without the use of the fingers. Same as when we go into flexion, we should be able to get around 90 degrees going down towards the ground. I'm going to push the knuckles down, and again, you'll see that my arm is around 90 degrees. If we can't do that, and the arm is around there or there as we're pushing the fingers back, then generally speaking, you probably have a bit of tension that's in the forearm. So in today's session, we'll go over a massage that will help you to alleviate that problem. Why should you work on the flexibility of your forearm? Well, if you're anyone that does any form of bodyweight training, calisthenics, yoga, etc., you're gonna find that the forearm gets quite tight, especially when we keep the hand in the extension position. Also, for those of you that are climbers, this exercise will definitely change the level of grip strength you have in your forearm. As we know, the tighter and the more pumpy the forearm becomes, the less you can grip onto the holds. Plus, anyone else that does any form of racket sports or bat sports, you're probably gonna need this exercise as well. Okay, so before we go into the actual exercise, I just want to give you guys a medical disclaimer. Bear in mind, here at Strength Clinic, we're not medical professionals in any form. So if you do have any issues related to your wrist or your forearm, please do get that checked out by a medical professional, and then you can try and attempt these exercises. Right, with that out of the way, let's get into this exercise. All right, so the first muscle we'll focus on is the brachioradialis. It's the muscle on the outside of the forearm. Now, this is where all the nerves tend to be there. As you press into the forearm, you'll notice there'll be a lot of tenderness and nerviness in this area. So Andy's already in position, and I'll step over in my first position. So you always want to make sure that you're supported, so you're using the wall to make sure you're in balance and you're not putting too much pressure on the person. I'm going to step my heels on the top part of his forearm, and here's the most important thing. You want to make sure as the heels go down, most of the weight is on the balls of the feet. So the balls of the feet are the bottom part of the toe area of the foot. So as I step up, the weight is in the balls of my feet. I put the weight gently down on my heels, and he'll communicate to me whether it's too intense or I need to ease off a bit. From here, the first movement we're going to do is it's going to gently rock up and down on the heels. Again, make sure you're maintaining the communication with the person you're doing the exercise with. How's that feeling?
Yeah, a little bit softer.
So he's saying a little softer, just so that we're easing into it. I can already start to feel the clumps underneath my heels. This is where the fascias just kind of clump together, and he's probably going to start to feel a bit more tingliness in the fingers.
Oh, no, you're right. I'm trying to find a sweet man. I might just speed that up.
How's that feeling?
That feels comfortable. It's good. It's not painful, but it's enough pressure for it to have an effect.
There's something there. Yeah. So we've already found a spot on Andy's forearm where it's quite tender. I don't want to go too hardcore on it, so I'm just easing off a tiny bit. I can do a couple of things. The first thing is obviously walking up and down and just pulsing into the area. Nice soft walks. The weight again is in the balls of the feet. The second thing is once I found a spot and he's ready to go, I can just take the other leg off, push the weight slightly into that area, and I'm just going to hold that until the pain or the sensation starts to ease. I'll just move my heels side to side a bit just so we can break those clumps down.
Yeah, that's good.
Is that the right pressure? Good. I'm going to bring the other foot back on top, and I'm just going to gently move down a bit more. See what else is going on. So So there's something there. Is that linked to the first area? Is that the first area?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the first area. Let's walk a little further down. Now you'll be surprised how sensitive the heels are. The smallest little bumps on the forearm, you'll feel them straight away. Whereas if I use my thumb, well, I won't necessarily feel those clumps, especially the ones that are a little lower and flattest, should I say. As I walk towards his wrist, there tends to be less stuff going on here, but even with Andy, he's got a bit of build up there. Can you feel that?
Yeah.
So now you have a rough idea of where all the main spots are. We're going to start right from the top, and we're going to start to work on actually breaking those clumps down. So here I go. The second one is side to side. So you're tap dancing the heels together at the back. And that just spreads and makes the lumps a little easier to deal with. The other thing you'll notice is that his fingers will start to twitch. Depending on which line I'm working on, that finger will start to twitch.
Sometimes I find it helps if I open and close my fist as well.
Yeah, so as Andy's saying, I don't know if you can hear on the microphone, but if he opens and closes his fist, he gets better activation of the fingers, he gets a much better sensation with the pressure of my heels. You can go single legs as well. So I'm using the same movement, moving my heels side to side, but I'm doing it with one foot. The other foot's on the side, I'm using it again as a support foot. And there's one more massage technique that we forgot. This is where we place the heel down on the person's forearm, but we lift the toes up. Now, by doing this, the intensity is increased and focused solely on the heel. So the person that's getting stretched is going to feel this a lot more than you taking the weight in the balls of your feet. And this is mainly only for those tender spots that the person might be experiencing. Just want to move our heels side to side, or you can just keep it stationary depending on how the person feels. All right, so for the second part of the exercise, we're going to flip our heels the opposite way around, and we're going to work on the inner part of the brachioradialis. So for this, I'm going to step over onto the other side, turn towards Andy, and we're going to make sure that the forearm is again positioned in the right direction. As he's in this position, the forearm's going to roll backwards. I want the forearm to be as upright as possible, so I'm working on this line here. I'm going to step forward with my toes facing in this direction and the heels facing backwards, grabbing onto the wall again. Take all the weight into the balls of your feet, and then we are in position to work on the inner part. Same movements again. So once we've done that, we're going to go back up the forearm, and I'm going to start using our techniques. Let's find that clump. Is that it?
Yeah.
Cool. So I'm going to just take the other foot off, gently push some weight through the heel, and I'm going to hold that for about 30 seconds to a minute. Good, and remember the final variation is the heel taps, the heel slides, where I pull the heels out and I bring the heels together. Okay, so the last exercise or massage we're going to focus on is for the wrist flexors. So it's the giant muscle you have on the inner part of your forearm. So for this one, Andy's going to have to turn his forearm outwards so we can work on the meaty part of the forearm. This one tends to be less nervy, but very sort of pumpy for the person. Same process, we take the weight into the balls of our feet, make sure you're well supported so you're holding onto the side of a wall, and then very gently we slide our heels up the inner part of his forearm and then down. And we're going to start working on these small little pulsing movements with a bit more force through them. Not as much as the previous one, but just enough. As I walk down towards his forearm, that's when we start to get into more of the bony area. So you might just want to ease off a bit in this area so it's not too intense and it's just not heels on bone. There's a bit of a clump there. You feel that?
Yeah.
And it's pretty good. Just a few little minor clumps here and there. And we'll focus on that clump as we walk back up and check. Right, I won't demonstrate the rest of the sequence that we've done because we've already done it in the last 2 exercises. So you're just repeating those same techniques for releasing that part of the forearm as well. All right, so those were the 3 different variations of the heel massage that you are doing for the forearm. Now, we want to go over a couple of tips so then things become a lot more easier and you can understand what's going on with the exercise itself. Right, so tip number 1 is making sure that the person that is getting massaged is pumping the fingers here and there. This will increase the blood flow, so then it reduces the amount of pins and needles that may occur as you are putting more pressure down with the heels. Tip number 2 is always maintain good feedback with the person that you're massaging. So remember that the person at the bottom is the one that's in control of this exercise, so we want to make sure that we're listening to the person's feedback. Now, in terms of what feedback is useful, if you are walking towards the joint areas of the forearm, just make sure that you're easing off the pressure in those areas. It can get really uncomfortable, especially when you tread on bone, and we don't want that. Tip number 3, we're going to use an apparatus to help assist with the stretch. Bear in mind, if this is the first time you're doing it, some of you may not find the right pressure or the right amount of force to put through the heels. So by using a yoga block or something that's quite soft to elevate the balls of the feet, this allows us to control the weight that goes to the heel. So just watch. I place the block down where I'm going to place my balls of my feet, and then I'm going to step up onto it. And instead of having my heels raised as I normally would do, I now drop the heels down onto the person's forearm. So there's a lot more control going through this. How does that feel?
Yeah, that's good.
So most of the weight at the moment is not just on the balls of my feet, but pretty much 3/4 of the foot. Anyone that suffers plantar fasciitis, this will probably be much easier for you. So if you are the person that's standing on top and you've got any issues with the balls of your feet or the soles of your feet, you're probably better with your foot flat. So make sure you're elevating the front part of the foot and dropping the heel down on the person's forearm. And the final point is to make sure that you are communicating how much pressure the person wants on each individual foot. When you get closer to the clumps, you'll notice that when one foot is on that clump, the person will probably want less pressure on that and probably more pressure on the other foot that's not on the clump. But in regards to duration and frequency, we want to be spending at least twice a week of doing this exercise, and then spending at least about 10 to 15 minutes on each forearm. Some of you might need to go a little longer, and bear in mind you may not get rid of all the tension in the first session, so you might need a few more sessions before you actually start to feel a massive difference in the forearm. But having said that, it will alleviate a good portion of the initial tension that you have because of your tight forearms. Okay, so that's pretty much it for this video. Do the usual stuff. Please do like this video. Drop a comment down in the comment section. Do let us know how your experience is. And also, please do share this video with anyone that requires this exercise. I can guarantee you it'll be a game changer. Done.